In the United States, housing has become disconnected from many individuals that want an affordable and safe place to live. Sure, there are many beautiful and suitable homes, but they're often out of reach for most Americans. Even the ones that are accessible require exhausting amounts of time and effort to acquire and maintain. How we view real estate, housing, and what it means to live somewhere secure and stable has become completely disconnected from reality for most people. It's not about living within your means anymore. It's become a competition just to find shelter, making housing in America feel like our livelihoods are being played with. We've been sold the idea that nice housing is a reward for financial success. If you work hard enough, you'll get a home with a yard and the white picket fence. And if you don't, society tells you it's your fault. But for millions of people, that reward is out of reach, no matter how hard they work. Instead of building a system where housing reflects people's basic needs, we've built one where the cost of shelter doesn't match the realities of income. That gap is widening. People are being pushed further to the margins, into neighborhoods that are underfunded and overpoliced, into environments that can damage their health, their education, and their future. According to an article from the U.S. Census Bureau released in September of 2024, nearly half of the 42.5 million renter households they calculated for rent burden spent more than 30% of their income on rent-related costs. In terms of race, this number reflects clear disparities, with over half of Hispanic and Black households experiencing rent burden, 53.2% and 56.2% respectively, compared to 43.4% of Asian households and 46.7% of white households. This isn't just an inconvenience, it's a loop. Renters are forced to choose housing they can barely afford, while the rest of their income is eaten up by other basic needs like food, healthcare, and clothing. Saving or investing becomes nearly impossible, and that's the point. Upward mobility becomes a distant fantasy. People are forced to accept that housing is now being used as a weapon against individual autonomy. This creates tension within communities and across the country, because the system rewards those who already have and punishes those who don't. It deepens the divides in American society and reinforces institutional exclusion. Housing is one of the clearest examples of a system designed to lock people out. One of the biggest factors preserving this broken system is landlordism. And I don't mean people renting out a basement or spare room. I mean the kind of landlordism that gets promoted as a lifestyle. The kind that sells courses on how to buy up housing and give the place the so-called landlord special, a cheap makeover, only to set the rent at a price far beyond what the home is worth. You see this kind of parasitic entrepreneurial behavior all over YouTube and TikTok. People telling you to buy property and let others pay your bills. That mindset has become a whole industry, one that's not just accepted, but actively encouraged as a viable career path. By hoarding a basic human need, these landlords get to live off your income with very little labor of their own. That's not a sustainable or just way for a society to function. Someone who lives off the labor of others without contributing anything back isn't a builder of society. They're a burden on it. This current system treats housing not as a right, but as a product. And when homes are treated like products, the people who live in them get treated like customers, or worse, like income streams. It erases the ideas of community and care and replaces them with one goal: maximizing return. That's the logic of landlordism. But it's not just traditional landlords or lifestyle influencers. There's another player reshaping the housing market: corporations. We're seeing hedge funds, LLCs, and private equity firms buying up many homes in specific metropolitan areas. After the 2008 crash, investors saw an opportunity. Housing prices were down and people were desperate, so they bought, and now they have significant influence in certain markets. According to a report released by the Government Accountability Office, by 2022, 32 institutional investors collectively owned about 450,000 single-family homes, with the 5 largest owning nearly 300,000. While these firms own only around 2% of single-family rentals nationwide, their footprint is much larger in specific cities. In Atlanta, for example, they own around 25% of all single-family rental homes. These companies benefited from post-recession foreclosure auctions and government programs that helped them scale rapidly. Although their exact impact on affordability is still debated, studies suggest that institutional ownership contributes to raising rents and home prices in high investment areas. These trends have real consequences. In places with heavy investor activity, rents tend to rise and large corporate landlords are more likely to file evictions. While these companies may have made it easier for some people to rent in desirable areas, their practices are also contributing to housing instability and displacement in many markets. Then there's Airbnb. What started as a way to rent out a spare room has turned into a business model for investors. People now buy entire homes just to list them on Airbnb. In tourist-heavy cities, that means fewer long-term rentals for actual residents. In smaller towns, they can leave neighborhoods empty during the week and flooded with short-term guests on weekends. According to a study published in Tourism Management Perspectives by Lee and Kim, short-term rentals like Airbnb are driving up housing costs, especially when entire homes are owned by multi-unit hosts. This isn't theoretical, it's happening now, and it's making housing less stable, less affordable, and less rooted in the people who actually live there. Landlordism, corporate buyouts, and the Airbnb boom are all part of the same logic, treating housing as a financial asset instead of a place to live. The long-term effects run deep. When people can't afford to buy homes, they can't build equity, they can't pass on wealth. According to the Aspen Institute, the median homeowner now has nearly 40 times the net worth of the median renter. That gap is enormous, and is still growing. But this isn't just about money. It's about mobility. It's about agency. It's about whether people feel like they have a future in the places they live. When housing is unstable, everything else becomes harder. Keeping a job, raising a family, and staying healthy. It breaks the foundation people need to build a life. Institutional investors have significantly reshaped the American housing market, especially when it comes to single-family homes. Economists like Kevin Erdman argue that these firms aren't the root cause of rising rents or home prices, but instead a response to broader failures like tight mortgage access and chronic underbuilding. Erdman contends that when lending standards tightened after the Great Recession, millions of families were shut out of home ownership, and institutional landlords stepped in to meet demand. He also argues that large-scale ownership is one of the few current market mechanisms capable of delivering rental housing at the necessary scale, particularly through new build-to-rent developments. While Erdman raises valid points about systemic failures, recent research from the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia complicates the picture. Studies by Lee and Wiley and Lambie, Hansen, and Malloy show that institutional investors often reduce home ownership rates in the neighborhoods they target, sometimes by as much as 20%. They also contribute to rent increases and displacement, especially in low-income areas. These investors frequently buy homes in bulk, often sight unseen, making it harder for families to compete and stay rooted. The result is a shift in who owns America's neighborhoods, favoring short-term returns over long-term stability. Rather than treating institutional landlords as inevitable or neutral actors, policymakers need to examine the conditions that allow them to thrive and the consequences that follow. Erdman is right to emphasize the need for more construction and to challenge regulatory barriers, but those critiques shouldn't excuse the negative effects of corporate consolidation in the housing market. Ownership models that prioritize investor returns over people's lives hurt access, stability, and community. There are ways forward that address both sides. Policymakers can restrict corporate entities from buying up existing single-family homes, while also encouraging new construction that actually meets people's needs, expanding access to mortgages, reforming zoning laws to allow for more diverse housing types, and offering tax credits or low-interest loans for affordable housing developers are all steps that can help redirect investment in a more equitable direction. Community land trusts and social housing need to be a part of the conversation too. According to Grounded Solutions Network, CLTs protect affordability by keeping land in trust while still allowing people to own their homes and build equity. These models provide long-term stability without relying on speculation. Social housing, when properly funded and maintained, can offer high-quality, dignified homes outside of the private market. Its decline in the U.S. has more to do with political neglect than poor design. But deeper than policy alone, there needs to be a cultural shift in how we think about wealth. Housing should never be a path to riches that comes at the expense of someone else's ability to live. As long as people are allowed to hoard homes as investor assets, we'll keep creating a society where access to basic needs is restricted by profit motives. We should be building a culture where wealth comes
comes from the value of your labor, not from owning what others require to survive. That kind of economy doesn't just lead to inequality, it erodes morality.
Housing should be more than a financial asset. It should be a source of stability, dignity, and community. While institutional capital may have a role in solving the housing crisis within our current system, that role needs to serve people, not profit. A balanced approach that limits speculative ownership, supports inclusive development, and uplifts non-market alternatives offers a more just and sustainable way forward, at least until more social policies can be implemented to drive a more equal and equitable system of ownership. If you liked this video, I would encourage you to hit the like and subscribe button. The goal of Dialectical Dispatch is to provide educational videos that may help bring about reform and ensure equity in America. I would like to encourage dialogue in the comments so we can all learn together to bring forth new ideas and viable possibilities for a brighter future. Thank you all for watching.